About 5 years of my life that really were a paradigm changer for me. I'm not an expert. I'm a practitioner. I had the privilege of being appointed by some members of Congress in 2003, right? 2003, 2004. There was a rise of extremism in Europe. There was a deep concern. We were coming out of Kosovo, Bosnia. History was starting to repeat itself. Who thought in 2000 we'd have concentration camps and people were being massacred and murdered by uniformed police officers in some cases? And that's not to disrespect the police officers. They were working on the orders of their state. Well, 2003 to 2004, I was handed off an assignment, and I was pretty much able to say, do what you need to do with this. Only the difference between us and everyone else is we are going to go into countries across Europe that are experiencing a rise in extremism, Nazism, etc., and we're going in with not human rights workers, and this is not, a hit on human rights workers, we're going to go in with sworn law enforcement executives, those that were practitioners, because our goal was to talk to the cops of those nations and say, look, we are starting to see some things inside your house. You're starting to see some things inside your house. And quite frankly, the common denominator is that these are people who hate democracy, people who hate others because of a difference in religion or race or sexual orientation or color of skin. And by the way, the common denominator between the officers of Serbia and Kosovo and Croatia, which quite frankly were shooting each other just 5 years before that, were all wearing blue. And these people that hate also hate you, meaning the law enforcement officers, because you represent your states, and you represent nations and states that are either going through democratization, I'm talking about Eastern Europe, or because of immigration and a lot of other things you'll hear me talk about, we're starting to see a real concern and a rise in homegrown extremism. When we think in terms of homegrown extremism, we're thinking of Al-Qaeda, we're thinking of Islam, Muslim. Not necessarily the case. Homegrown extremists can be neo-Nazis. A homegrown extremist is anyone, a true believer, that book by Eric Hoffer, a true believer who honestly feels that he or she will kill in the name of their God or the name of their ideological, whatever they believe in at the time, and attack others for no other reason because of race, religion, and I can go on and on. So 5 years we spent overseas, and it was really an amazing experience and an amazing opportunity. So I talked to you as a practitioner. I guess you can say I was there. We led a mission of 11 executive officers, colonels, majors, lieutenants from the Gendarmerie of France, Scotland Yard, Kosovo Police, Hungarian police. I looked to Mark because Mark was the organizer, one of the organizers of the mission, and had an opportunity to travel with us. Here's case in point. And then you're probably saying, well, okay, why is he talking about Europe? And just we'll get there. Increase in violence, hate crimes, and threat to democratic states. This is the past decade. It's on the rise. It's a concern. It's real. Social, political, and institutional conditions allowing the strengthening of far-right and other extremist organizations and new means of communication. This little, beautiful, wonderful thing called the internet. This is the steroid for the ideology. This is what distinguishes us today from 50, 60 years ago. And you saw how successful it was 50, 60 years ago. Just think in terms of what can be done now through the internet. And by the way, I'm not anti-internet. I love the internet. I use it 50 times a day. But as people who are seasoned in law enforcement and responsible for investigations, today's topics are really going to be about how social media is being used, how it really is changing minds, how it is touching the disenchanted and disenfranchised, and in some cases even changing political streams of whole nations, and how it can in fact potentially reach our shores. I'm not saying the Nazis are coming. Believe me, the last thing I do, I've been in law enforcement too long. The sky isn't falling. It's not the end of the world. There's different dynamics advantage today that we had years ago. And we have to understand social media. We have to understand how it's used and how we can use it to our benefit as well. Very important. Let's talk a little bit about it, though, a few seconds. I don't think there's anybody in this room that hasn't heard of Mohammed Mira. And if you haven't, this is the fine young gentleman, jihadist, in the name of his beliefs and his ideologies, decided to go out and kill French soldiers, and his ultimate act was to enter a schoolyard filled with Jewish children and literally execute them as they ran from him. One 9-year-old, beautiful child, he grabbed her by the hair, put the gun to the back of her head, and blew her face off. For no other reason than she was a Jewish child. This is modern times. This is weeks ago, by the way. I had the opportunity to spend time in Paris, and quite frankly, I represented the French Jewish community in meetings between DHS Secretary's Office and the U.S. Department of Justice, because the internet became an issue here. The use of the internet to spew hatred. The French Jewish community feels continuously threatened. The laws are here. As you all know, this little thing we call First Amendment, which, believe me, I'm a big believer in. They don't have that over there. They have laws where if hate is spewed via internet, people can be prosecuted. So the haters are setting up their internet sites here and are spewing the hatred and the threats from our shores. And they've been doing it pretty well and cloaking themselves behind First Amendment. Our job was to get the U.S. Department of Justice and DHS to see through a different set of eyes, particularly through the eyes of international victims, that this may not be a good thing. DOJ and DHS did a splendid job. I have to tell you, I'm a big fan of DHS. They really, over the last couple of years, have done a remarkable job in outreach. Why is this important? Because this fine gentleman was, and we understand, still some of his friends and allies are motivated by the internet more today than ever. So we're just going to talk a little bit about what's going on out there. Greece, May 29th. Folks, this is a couple of weeks ago. How many of you knew neo-Nazis in Greece? Who would think? Greece was a victim of Nazism. These people were butchered, killed, maimed. Very cultured, very sophisticated society. It's one in trouble. What's always in the recipe? The economy, money, immigration. So even in a nation that was beaten down by Nazism, whoever thought 2,000 supporters, and by the way, the Golden Dawn, which is a political party that spews ultra-right wing and Nazism, they're making some real good progress in elections right now. So the more progress they make, the less you're going to see these street demonstrations. Why? Because they're becoming mainstream, and that's a dangerous thing. Recent attacks in Europe. June 3rd, folks. This is June 3rd. By the way, I'll be back over there in just a couple of weeks. Violent clashes between anti-Nazi protesters and far right at a neo-Nazi rally in Hamburg. 38 police injured, 700 arrested. $1.5 million worth of damage. It's 1.5 is $2 million worth of damage in just this street battle. By the way, I'm not showing you historical facts here. I'm showing you the last couple of weeks. Average Americans don't know about this. They're not watching it. Should they be? Yeah. We need to.
We need to get you on IGTV.
Swiss neo-Nazi wanted for attempted murder. Easy to identify by police after he fled Germany. If I wasn't on camera, I'd say something right now.
I'll stop it.